It's been confirmed that Beyond the Spider-Verse is going to be really emotional, which seems pretty clear with all the character development we've seen in the previous movies. However, we don't know exactly what emotional moments are coming. Some people think there might be a death or an almost death of an important character, which makes sense. In this video, I'll share my thoughts on which characters could die or come close to dying in the next movie. Keep in mind, this is all just speculation and theory since it's tough to predict what's actually gonna happen. Maybe no one will die at all. Still, I think it's fun to speculate and have these discussions, so let's get started. The first one I think might be at risk of dying or coming close to death is Miles, the main character. Many people believe it's unlikely for him to die since he's the protagonist, but anything can happen in these stories. That said, it would be tough for him to actually die. If I had to guess, I think he might end up sacrificing himself to save everyone during a battle with the Spot. There could also be a moment where it seems like he dies during the fight, but he ends up surviving in the end. Alternatively, he might sacrifice himself to save someone really important to him. Personally, I don't think he'll die, but it's definitely interesting to speculate. Next up is Miles's dad, Jefferson. According to the canon, he's meant to die at the hands of the Spot. Honestly, if he does die, it might be a bit predictable since everyone is kind of expecting it. Still, he could end up being the one who actually dies or at least comes close. While he had some moments in Across the Spider-Verse, I didn't really feel like there were any super emotional scenes or deep conversations between him and Miles. But he still has a chance of dying in the next movie, especially since the whole plot revolves around Miles trying to save his dad from that fate and breaking the so-called canon event that Miguel talks about. Next up is Miles's mom, Rio Morales. I think she has the highest chance of dying in Beyond the Spider-Verse compared to everyone on this list. She's had some really meaningful moments with Miles, especially that conversation they had before he followed Gwen. She encouraged him to go after her while reminding him to never forget where he came from and not to let anyone make him feel like he doesn't belong.
So, here's the deal. Wherever you go from here, you have to promise to take care of that little boy for me. Make sure he never forgets where he came from. And he never doubts that he is loved. And he never lets anyone at those big fancy places he's gonna be in tell him that he doesn't belong there.
It would be really unfortunate if she died because I really like her character. Plus, in some comics, she does die, which raises the chances that it could happen in the movie. If she does die or comes close to it, I have no idea how it might happen. It could be the Spot or maybe something else entirely, but honestly, I'm just not sure. Next up is Gwen. She knows that her destiny includes dying when she falls for Spider-Man. However, it's pretty easy to challenge that idea since she's not just an ordinary Gwen Stacy. She's a Spider-Person. Some people think the same rules might still apply to her because she's still Gwen Stacy at heart, regardless of her Spider-Person status. We saw in the movie that she has feelings for Miles, which is why she held back during that beautiful moment at the clock tower. She was worried that embracing those feelings could lead to something bad.
In every other universe, Gwen Stacy falls for Spider-Man. And in every other universe, it doesn't end well.
But by the end of Across the Spider-Verse, she's stopped being afraid and is ready to be open about her feelings. This could mean she might be one of the first Gwen Stacys to actually get a happy ending with Spider-Man, or on the flip side, she could be just another Gwen who falls for Spider-Man and ends up dying. We also know that Gwen has a lot to do to regain Miles's trust since she broke his heart. She needs to prove that she's trustworthy again, and I really hope she doesn't have to sacrifice herself to either Miles or his dad as a way to redeem herself, because that would be super heartbreaking and feel kind of repetitive for her character. Still, there's a chance she could have a tragic ending, but personally, I don't think either her or Miles will die in the next movie. Next up is Peter B. Parker. He's another one that might die or come close to dying in the next movie. Some people think it's unlikely since he's now a father and seems really happy with his family. If something were to happen to him, it would be really emotional, especially since he's a mentor to Miles. In my opinion, he didn't get a lot of standout moments in Across the Spider-Verse. He did have that one important conversation with Miles about how good and bad things happen, which was a nice moment, but that was about it. Still, he's on the list of characters who could die in the next movie. How that might happen, I'm not sure. It could be similar to the others I mentioned, like sacrificing himself or facing a close call. But he definitely has a chance of dying. Next up is Miguel O'Hara, the antagonist from Across the Spider-Verse. He and Miles are on opposite sides. Miguel believes in the importance of canon events, while Miles does not. This conflict will definitely be key in Beyond the Spider-Verse. The big question will be who's right, Miguel or Miles, when it comes to whether canon events are real or just a made-up concept. To be fair, Miguel isn't a bad character. He's just deeply affected by his past. He tried to take the place of an alternate version of himself that died in another universe. Unfortunately, that universe ended up being destroyed because of it, which led to a lot of trauma for him. This is why he takes canon events so seriously. He's experienced firsthand the consequences of disrupting them. Miguel tries to impose his trauma on others, insisting that they shouldn't interfere with the canon, as doing so could lead to the destruction of their universe. That's why he created the Spider Society, to manage these events and to let things happen as they're supposed to, even if it means watching someone die.
So we're just supposed to let people die because some algorithm says that that's supposed to happen? You realize how messed up that sounds, right?
In Beyond the Spider-Verse, Miguel could possibly be proven wrong, and it might even be necessary for him to sacrifice himself to save everyone as a way to redeem himself. I would love to see him and Miles find common ground, but he's definitely on the list of characters who could die or come close to dying, as he is important to the overall story. Next up is Spider-Punk. He really stood out in Across the Spider-Verse and played a key role in setting the plot in motion. He helped both Gwen and Miles, and a lot of people love his character. Even though he didn't have a lot of screen time, he really stole the show. It's tough to think that a character like him could still face the possibility of dying, especially since it would have a big emotional impact. I feel like he will be one of the first to reach out to Miles, especially since at that point, Miles doesn't trust anyone in the Spider Society except for him and maybe Spider-Bite, who helped him escape. Spider-Punk is definitely the one Miles trusts the most, which unfortunately raises the chance that he might sacrifice himself or come close to dying in the next movie. Lastly, we have Prowler, who is Miles's alternate version from Earth 42. We didn't see much of him in Across the Spider-Verse since he only appeared briefly at the end, but I'm pretty sure he's going to play a significant role in the next movie. While it seems unlikely, there's a chance he could die as well. All the characters I've mentioned in this video are the ones I think have the highest chance of dying if that's the direction the directors want to take for emotional impact. But it's also possible that no one will actually die, and it will just be a close call. We know that Spider-Man stories often don't end happily, but I really hope this time is different because Miles truly deserves a happy ending.
Well, it's the first time for everything, right?
One thing I learned from Miles, it's all possible.